This is Morning Joe's. I'm your host, Joe Johnson, owner of PurplePTSD.com and VikingsTerritory.com, as well as PurpleTerritoryRadio.com. Belatedly here with Mr. Joe Oberle. Morning. Joe writes for PurplePTSD.com, VikingsTerritory.com. He's also the editor of those sites, and he writes for The Sports Post. What a week!
Yes.
It's one thing that I think an opinion that solidified for me this weekend is that this team really doesn't hesitate to make moves with all the money and real estate and everything they've invested into attempting to bring a championship to Minnesota for the first time. It's just amazing that the moves they make relatively quickly. It sounds like Joe got disconnected, so that's by design. I decided to pull a DiFilippo and cut him loose mid-show, mid-season, and it terrifies me. So I'll try to give him a call back, but yeah, I wrote an article a few weeks ago titled "Zimmer's Seat is Starting to Warm," and I will link that in the different articles for this episode if you guys want to read it. Basically, the crux of it was that Charlie Walters is a respected writer for the Pioneer Press. Basically said that at the time, since the defense was struggling pretty mightily and the team had invested so much into this season, that if the Vikings end up, with a 500 record or below, and it's because the defense, for whatever reason, is checked out, or what we seem to have figured out at this point, which was the defense was just too complicated. Zimmer added too many wrinkles to it this offseason, that the Wilfs and Spielman might be looking to go a different direction. And the only reason I wrote it was because I saw that Charlie Walters had written it, and I basically said the same thing. I said, he's not on the hot seat now, but he very well could be at the end of the season. People aren't, I've discovered in my 3 to 4 years of covering the Vikings, very good at picking up on nuance in articles. There's a lot of people that just read the headlines and form a conclusion, and whether or not they actually read the rest of the article, either way, their brain has made up their mind, so they're not going to necessarily change their mind. But let me try Joe back. This is a professional operation we run. Hello.
Wow.
You're back. I told our audience that I decided to pull a DiFilippo.
Good move.
I just cut you loose. But to finish my point, at the time I was just raked over the coals for that take, and it's
Which one?
That the Zimmer's seat was starting to warm, and if the team was 500 or below at the end of the season, that the Vikings might be either looking to make a move or the fans would demand it, and the team notwithstanding.
It was early.
What was that?
Your take was a little early, I thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't saying at the time, though. I was saying that if this keeps up, it's gonna get a little hairy for him. And yeah, that seems to be the case. I will say that was I did also, the nuance was that if it was because the defense just was checked out, or the so on and so forth, it was too complicated, too many new wrinkles. Not necessarily the offense, but I will say that, and I want your perspective on this, Joe, because you've covered the team for a lot longer than I have. I have never in my life, and I'm paying a lot more attention now and interacting with a lot more people, seeing the amount of palpable anger that every person that I talk to has a theory as to why the team is struggling. And I think that Seattle game it was a nightmare in regards to how poorly the offense performed compared to how much money they gave Kirk Cousins. People are kind of ignoring the beginning of the season when the offense was doing well. 50 people this week, or last night. Man, they blew it. They blew it bringing in that quarterback. Or, Spielman sucks. Zimmer sucks, so on and so forth. And it's not just bandwagon jumping. It's like people are super pissed. And I don't know if that's because I'm paying more attention to it, and this happens whenever this happens. But yikes!
Well, you're certainly more emotionally invested since you've put your takes out on the whatever sphere for everybody to see, and you're pretty invested in Kirk Cousins, and you're all in, and he's the guy. You wanted him. I mean, it all comes down to expectations, I think. I mean, the more you expect this team to do well, the more disappointed you are when they don't. I've seen it for many years. Hope. I think hope is better than expectation, and I think that's where people get worked up. They expect them for such and such a reason to get paid back for whatever they put in. You put $84 million into a quarterback, you expect it. And it's one thing I was going to say today. Vikings really have to win or make the playoffs. Kirk Cousins really needs the Vikings to make the playoffs. He really does. Even if they don't win a game in the playoffs, if they go so completely backwards this year and not make the playoffs with bringing in this top prize free agent quarterback for $84 million, the animus is going to increase. What you've seen already is going to double, triple, in fervor, and they're going to start screaming for them to Vikings to draft a quarterback in the first round. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But, it's partially you're paying more attention. You're going to see more of that. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit like you do and see the anger there, but you see it every other way, But what are you going to do? I mean, they're human beings, not everything works out the way you expect it to. Certainly the Vikings didn't think the seasons would go this way. I'm sure they expected some kind of drop off, but I mean, look around the league. Look at the Jaguars. They're right there where the Vikings were, and all of a sudden, they're in worse shape than Minnesota is. And the Packers people were picking them to certainly win the division and go deep into the playoffs this year. And they're hanging on by their fingernails. So it's the way the league is. It's really crazy that maybe it was fortuitous for the Rams to lose early enough so that they didn't have their hopes dashed, so late in the playoffs that the Vikings did and can, recover emotionally. I don't know. I put more into the humanity of these players than the numbers. You probably, if you've listened to me on here for a long time, you'll know that. And you can't expect these guys to do anything. You hope they're going to give you their best effort, and I think they are. I don't doubt for a minute that Kirk Cousins is out there, doing everything he can to win ball games. Now, if they had a offensive coordinator who had a different agenda in mind, I don't know if that's true, but there's some speculation that he was padding his resume for a head coaching job, and if that's at odds with what the rest of the team needed to do or whatever, there you go. That's what's going to happen. But the Vikings came out of the gate playing terrible defense. They made adjustments and they got back to where they should be playing. I think that's where they're headed now. They're still a team that has a new offensive coordinator, has a new quarterback. Trying to figure things out. And now, the rest of the league figured out what to do with Diggs and Thielen. So now you got to respond to that. It comes down how you respond and how you make changes on the fly and adjustments. And we've heard that forever. The Vikings have to adjust this week. They made what some people are calling a desperate move by firing their offensive coordinator and putting in place someone who maybe should have been there in the first place. Who knows? But here it is in front of you. And I'm not gonna get disappointed or angry until the season's over, because the Vikings can still make the playoffs, and that will be a fine thing given everything that's gone on this season. So, That's
They've had every chance to. The Bears have given them an opportunity to get back into things. The NFC is pretty weak this year. Earlier in the season, we thought you have to win 10, 11 games to make the playoffs. They're 9-5-1 will get them there. But you're right.
Can't you call the AFC weak because you got a Miami team that's suddenly 7-6 and on the cusp of the playoffs? They don't deserve to be there. The Vikings should beat them by 10, 15 points this week. They're not that good of a team.
Yeah.
And
that's true too.
I think it's all speculation. You don't know. I mean, week to week in this league, anybody beats anybody else. It can happen, and it does. We see it constantly. Last night, the world beaters were beat.
What a game that was.
I missed it, unfortunately, but it's just what happens, and people were calling for it, which amazed me. There was a lot of people predicting a win by the Chargers, and I would have never seen it happening.
Cold-blooded.
You can't expect anything to happen. You can't, and people do because they bet on it, and they get mad when it doesn't happen. Well, don't bet, because then you get mad twice. That's what I do. I stopped betting on the Vikings because I would, then I'm losing twice. Not only am I losing the Vikings loss, I'm losing the money, and I said, this is stupid. So
yeah. Well, unfortunately, the way the site is structured is that we all lose financially when the Vikings lose as well. But yeah, I mean,
not necessarily, but okay. I mean, sometimes
we get like a bonus in the playoffs, and then if they make the Super Bowl, we get like a huge bonus as well.
We do. I get a bonus if the Vikings make.
Yeah, we should. I mean, a lot of our sponsors are. Basically, and then people come out of the woodwork. I mean, everybody last year during the playoffs, we were getting 5-6 emails a day for people that wanted to post and work with us. It was amazing.
Well,
God,
now I'm mad, Joe.
Tell me about it. God, there's so much there with what you just said, and we'll get into the Stefanski thing. I do want to talk about Cousins as well. I mean, I completely agree with you that they need to make the playoffs. Fans are turning on him like crazy, fair or unfair, and he came out this week and basically put it on his shoulders and said that had he been, I think, as efficient as possible or maximized the opportunities or whatever his verbiage was, that the Vikings wouldn't be in the position they are this week with the record and also with DiFilippo. It sounded like a lot of the team leaders, Kyle Rudolph, I think, was sad about the DiFilippo thing. But
it's good that he's owning some of it because he's definitely culpable. I mean, he's got some skin in this game. He's got a huge amount of it. It's on him. I appreciate that he's not in full denial, Trump-like denial mode of the reality around him. He's not performed well, but I'm tired of a little bit of going down to TCO every Wednesday and sitting in on his presser, and he's a great guy. He seems like a really nice guy and genuine, and he's trying. And it's like, well, let's come on now, Kurt. It's time to perform. It's time to do it. You said what you said. It's on me. If he's taking it on, let's see a game from him like we saw earlier in the season. Let's see him just in command back there and not jittery and bouncing around like an electrified Energizer bunny trying to find where to throw the ball next. I don't know. I want to see it this year.
Thank you, because that's I was going to say that his statement though rubbed me the wrong way, and I'll be completely honest. I mean, like you said, I was a huge proponent of him coming here. I'm getting a little tired of it. It's like, it's my fault, but he was basically saying, well, we played the Bears, and they're really good, and then we played the Rams, and they're really good, and then we played the Patriots in New England, and nobody wins there. So it was like he was trying to say the right things while also giving himself an excuse for what has happened, and at some point, going back to like the turnover stuff, every week, and turnovers are my number one thing, and they're on the whiteboard, and he's very well coached in football speak, But at some point, like you said, you have to perform. And
but it's not like he hasn't though either, Joe. I mean, we saw it earlier in the year, and that's the most perplexing thing for me because we're looking.
That was my next question.
Yeah, we're looking at a different quarterback than we saw in the first half of the season. Don't you think?
Yes, and I was on cloud 9 earlier in the season. I mean, he was hanging tough in the pocket. He was getting hit. He was making borderline miraculous. He was had to be like a top 5 candidate. I mean, he was making these throws to Thielen that were just amazing. There were like 3 or 4 I remember saying on the show that were some of the most amazing touchdowns I'd ever seen for the Vikings. And I feel like when I talk to people that are angry in public, I say, well, yeah, I'm pissed too, I'm disappointed, but it's not that he hasn't shown he's capable. And I don't know, I know that the response to that is, well, he beats bad teams, but he's 4-24 or 4-25 against good teams. I don't think it really is, and it's really disconcerting. He has great stats. But
one thing I would say about his throws, some of those throws earlier in the year, I was gaga at the first 3 games. I mean, if you remember me on this show, or not this show, but Purple Journal, that I was saying, okay, I'm all in on this guy. The things he's doing, the players hitting. But then I heard him say, and I saw a look on his face. He said, when he watched that Thielen touchdown to the Packers, where Thielen catches between 2 defenders right on top and falls backwards into the end zone.
Yep.
He looks at that and he says, yeah, I saw that on tape, and I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't have thrown that. And right there, that right there said, okay, this is not the exact science that we all think it is. He kind of winged that one. He did a little Case Keenum on there and said, let's go up there and see if we got a little football luck, pigskin luck. And he did. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe he was getting luckier. I also think it's, defense is figuring out what the Vikings are doing too, because they've certainly clamped down on their receivers and said, Kirk, try to find Laquan Treadwell, try to find somebody else.
Patrick Robinson.
Yes,
I think Chad Beebe coming back is big. It's we've said this multiple times, but having a capable third receiver, Jarius Wright would be nice. You would think at some point. I do wonder what the difference is. Maybe some of that luck just isn't going their way. It does seem like he's attempted to limit those mistakes, and perhaps either that puts an extra step mentally in his mind, and that's just completely breaking things, or he's just going for the underneath guy all the time because he's afraid of the pick sixes. He's had a couple devastating ones. I don't know what the problem is. I've seen
part of it is his. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the writer's sphere. It's the reaction to the D. Filippo thing. It runs the gamut from the Vikings should have never listened to Zimmer and tried to run the ball so much because they were doing so much better when they were throwing 60 times a game. And that brings up my one defense of Cousins, which is, there were back-to-back weeks where he was throwing the ball almost 130 times. And, statistically, you're going to throw interceptions eventually, especially when your volume is that high. So that's part of the problem. I don't really know outside of that, just because I've seen every single type of they ran the ball too much, they didn't run the ball enough, so on and so forth.
Well, that always comes down to everybody's got a theory, and everybody's got a lot of people have a platform to voice those theories, so you're going to hear them. But as far as I'm concerned, I just see a different guy in the backfield in the pocket. I mean, he looks so nervous and so jittery, and where he was never Aaron Rodgers calm back there and surveying and throwing, but he was sitting back, hanging in, making plays at the end of at the last second. I mean, that throw that we talked about to Adam Thielen was, he got drilled afterwards, probably didn't see it. So, he was doing that, and he almost seems like maybe he's been hit too much this year and pressured too much that it has gotten to his head, and he says, I got to get this ball out, and if they're taking away his security blankets who have just made him, in the first half of the season be a top 5, quarterback, that's probably disconcerting, because he relied on those guys getting open, and then he's got to check, go through the progression and find something else. And there's got to be some confidence there that's lacking. There's got to be some concern about the offensive line in front of him, even though they're starting to play better.
Ironically.
I guess we can, if we see a completely different offense this week, we can chalk some of it up to what was I going to say? But I guess I'm going to say we can chalk some of it up to where they're playing a lesser team. I feel, even though this team does have a winning record, if we see we might be able to say that some of this is on the offensive coordinator. If we see a quarterback who seems to be a little less nervous, a little more freewheeling, a little more like he looked, with confidence in the first half of the season, then maybe there was something to this move. It's the right thing. We'll have to judge that as it happens. But, some of this is really on Kirk Cousins to figure it out. And, maybe the weight of that money and that number is on him too. I don't know. They're all, like I say, they're all human. And there's any number of possibilities why this isn't happening the way we expected it to.
Yeah, and we covered live the DiFilippo news. It came on Tuesday, about a half an hour after we had recorded our show. The fall from grace is astounding. I mean, the week before that, people were saying he was the front runner for the Packers job, and now he's out of a job. And I've seen a lot of the Eagles fans on Reddit are starting a campaign to get him to come back.
Yeah, he'll get a job.
For sure. He definitely will.
He might even get a head coaching job. I don't doubt that.
Especially depending on how the Viking season ends, he could, turn it and say, well, it's a nightmare there. So, especially with the NFL being such a league of copycats and everyone wanting
they're still going to play his offense. They're still going to run his offense.
Yeah, that was the quote, basically, that they're not going to implement an entirely new offense, obviously, with three games left. I think they're going to look to simplify it a little bit, run the ball.
Where did we hear that before? With the defense of the first half of the year, that was the problem. They had thrown so much at these guys, they didn't know what they were doing, and all of a sudden they simplified the defense and let the guys play.
Yeah.
And they've played much better ever since that point. I mean, they've been getting increasingly better. And like I said, I've argued that last week was their best game of the season. So hopefully that trend continues. Maybe we'll see that from the offense.
Yeah, I know there was a point where Zimmer called Cousins as he felt that he wasn't the same quarterback that he was earlier in the season. I asked him if there was too much volume. Cousins said no. It's just I'm not performing up to my standards. I saw some quotes from like Pat Elflein saying that the offense needs more balance. But, the Vikings still have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. That's why the defense can simplify and perform so well, because they have guys that can take simple concepts and elevate them just by their play. I'm hoping that the offense will do the same thing like you just said. I'm a little concerned about how these defenses have been able to scheme Diggs and Thielen out of the game. But I feel like if you just, again, simplify things and go to those guys, especially, with Thielen's catch radius, with the routes that they run, if the timing's there, you would think that it would work. Same thing with Dalvin Cook. I mean, I've said this every show since he returned. He looks like on every play that he's ready to bust free for like a freaking touchdown. He's got so much, it feels like pent up, ready to go-ness, and he's got this extra. He seems more powerful. He seems faster when he gets open. He seems quicker, even in shorter runs. So I want to look at this as a positive. I was a Stefanski guy before the season started, just namely because there's familiarity with the team and his QB whispering reputation with the stuff he did with Bradford and Keenum. Zimmer said that number one, him and Cousins have a great working relationship, and so hopefully they'll be able to figure it out. I mean, they have to.
Just to go back to something you said earlier about Zimmer asking Cousins if there was too much volume. Don't you think to a certain degree that Cousins is also the good soldier to almost a fault? That he's he's going to take that on himself rather than say, "Oh yeah, I can't keep up with all this. This is just too much." Simple for me. He could have thrown DiFilippo under the bus, weeks ago. Right when Zimmer was feeding him the line to give him the opportunities. Here it is. But he took it on, and and I'll pat him on the back for that. But maybe there was a problem there. If we see a better Cousins, maybe there's some.
I did hope at the time that he would have said yes. Mainly because I was just looking for some sort of change from what was going on. And because I do feel like there's a disconnect somewhere, whether he's, like I said, putting an extra step in his brain to make sure he's not, throwing these interceptions at the worst possible time.
Bottom line is, too, though, it's right across the border. There's a good, there's a good comparison there where you got probably the best quarterback in the league right now. He looked like hell this year, Aaron Rodgers. And as the season has gone on, he's looked really poorly. And now, maybe they looked better last week with Mike McCarthy gone. When you have some synergy that's not happening between your offensive coordinator, your play caller, and your quarterback, it's going to cause problems. I mean, I heard somebody say at some point where maybe Cousins felt restricted or he couldn't. He had to run plays that maybe he didn't think he should have when he's out there. I don't know. That's a feeling out process too. You don't, until you get to the games, you don't know how much you can check down at the line and without pissing off your offensive coordinator, the plays he calls. So there's that dance you have to get used to when you have two new people together like that. So there's so much here that no one's going to tell you exactly what the reasoning is, but I think there's reason for being optimistic that maybe that marriage was never going to work, and maybe they you credit the organization. It looks desperate perhaps at this point in time to make this change, but maybe it's the change that has to happen anyway. And we'll find out. Like I said before, it's on Cousins. He's got to get this team to the playoffs, or the weight on him is going to increase, and maybe his performance will suffer even worse as a result.
For sure. I completely agree with you. One interesting note, too, before we get into the...
McDonald's time and date, you said you completely agree with me.
Put it on the sound bar. So, like I said, there's been a lot of people who are jumping off this Viking ship, and there's some funny stuff out there, like the person putting the U.S. Bank Stadium up for sale on Craigslist. But then you have this darker side that I don't know how I feel about it, because I didn't see any of the personal stuff. But Zimmer's daughter came out and defended him against people online who she said weren't real fans. She said that there was a lot of negativity and that people shouldn't criticize him because he works, long hours. He's lost all this weight because he's so stressed out. He has, the only free time that he has a charitable foundation. And, my reaction to it was, okay, I think she said some people were making fun of his appearance or something, which is uncalled for, and personal stuff like that has no place in this. But at the same time,
you lose all credibility in your criticism if you say crap like that.
Of course.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. But on the other side of it, part of being an NFL head coach is those things. It's not that necessarily, but it is criticism. It is frustration. Every NFL coach on certain different levels, but they all work a lot of hours. They all have charitable foundations. And so I felt like, not cry me a river, but that comes with it. And
you're right though, Joe. That also comes through with being a daughter. You're gonna defend your dad.
Yeah.
If everybody else and their brother can rip your dad for how he looks and how blah 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 this or blah blah blah, she can come to his defense all she wants, and I say more power to her. She's putting herself out there, and she's gonna get ripped and what have you. And I'm sure, being Zimmer's daughter, she's probably ready for it. But ultimately, there's some legitimacy to the criticism that, yes, he works these hours, yes, he does all this and this, but he's also paid to win football games. And nobody knows that more than Zimmer. So so some of it is warranted, or I should not say warranted, but you can do it. You're more than have at it if you want. When you start attacking someone personally and for their appearance, and it's just like, shut up, go away.
Yeah.
Don't need it. Doesn't make any difference. But I applaud her if she wants. I'm not sure if it's the best idea to put that out there. But Zimmer didn't seem to be bothered by it. It was probably, it's nice that it got that publicity because Zimmer doesn't deserve all the crap he gets, just like Cousins doesn't deserve everything he gets. It's, you got so many moving parts in this thing. Everybody's culpable. That's what, when I was over there at TCO on Wednesday, that's what they're all saying, all the players, this is on us. Pat Elflein was saying, we should have executed better. And Kyle Rudolph said the same thing. Adam Thielen, he said, when they're all bummed, when this kind of thing happens, it's on the entire offense, for whatever reason. They might be trying as hard as they can, but maybe they're not being smart enough. Maybe they haven't quite got all their assignments down on a certain play, or maybe they dropped a pass here or there. All these things accumulate and affect that bottom line result, which was a win or a loss. And if you're not meeting the expectation of fans, they're gonna rail on you. Yeah. I don't say they can't, but be real about it, will you, please? That's all I ask.
Yeah, I can't. I'd be a hypocrite. My sister's been on the front page of the Star Tribune a few times. She's a teacher at South High School in Minneapolis, where I went, and she got to go to the White House for this award. The 2 teachers a year get it in the state.
Nice.
And a bunch of people on StarTribune.com were ripping her for being a liberal or whatever, and I did the same thing. I was in there in the comment section going off on people. So I can't point the dirty end of the stick at anybody. Let's get into Friday's 5 Furious Facts, because this game, it's a doozy, and we don't see Miami very often, so it'll be interesting to see how they perform.
Well, Joe, they're a 7-6 team. They're a winning team. They have a winning record.
Uh-oh.
That. And one of those monkeys could come off the bat. Hopefully, by Sunday they what you call the term? They move it to prime time so that you can get a prime time win. Flex, thank you. Flex it to Sunday night. I'm just kidding, of course, because the Vikings haven't had a goddamn noon game at home for 5 weeks, and personally I like those when I go down there. I like the Sunday after, the Sunday noon games, and you got a little bit of your Sunday left to watch them. But anyway, that's my problem. The Finns are 7-6. They have a better record than the Vikings, but are a slot out of the playoffs in the AFC. I mean, they're 1 game behind. So,
and they're behind the Colts and the Ravens, or are they tied with them?
The Finns are 7-6 and tied with 3 other teams, including the Ravens, who hold the 6th spot. So there's 3 teams. There's 2 teams plus the Dolphins that are trying to get that 6th spot. So my point is with this number is that they're going to be every bit as fired up as anybody else to win this game, because they haven't sniffed the playoffs for a while. I guess once in the last several years. So they're pretty excited. But the Dolphins are not better than the Vikings. They're ranked 29th in yards allowed, 25th in passing yards, and 29th in rushing yards allowed. And the biggest one, they're ranked 26th in points they've given up, which is 25.6 per game.
Those are definitely beatable stats, you would hope. But Seattle had a supposedly bad pass offense.
With a balanced offense. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because Tannehill in the last 3 games has had a 69.1% completion percentage, 606 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception for a 129.9 rating. I think he's the 6th best passer rating in the NFL, despite the fact that he doesn't throw for many yards, it seems like, but he just doesn't seem to make any mistakes.
He missed some games with injury too, though.
Yeah, shoulder injury. So he has a 128 average passer rating at home, but only an 85.3 passer rating on the road. So that is key. That's actually one of my keys to the Vikings winning the game, having that be the case. Unfortunately, the defense has held better quarterbacks like Drew Brees and Russell Wilson to really low yardage amounts. I mean, Russell Wilson, I think, had, as you said, the lowest total of his career with 72 yards last week, and the Vikings still found a way to lose that game. But Tannehill, it seems like, he makes in some of these games under 20 passes a game, but they win because they are a balanced offense. I wonder too how much that amazing last-second win against the Patriots either builds momentum, which I think they've won 2 in a row now, or is like the Minneapolis Miracle in that it's an emotional high that they struggle to kind of come back up from. I certainly hope it's the latter, but with our
people have certainly talked about that. And it's comparable, but I would say it's not as big a deal as it was for the Vikings, because that's a playoff game. That's last second. They looked completely beat. I mean, it's very comparable. That there is certainly an emotional high this week. I liked when they asked Zimmer about it. About how you get your team back down to earth after you get a high like that. He goes, "Oh, well, I'm not going to tell him." And I feel like saying, maybe you should tell him, because it didn't work out.
Yeah, because whatever you did.
Right.
Yikes.
I think that's part of it. Just before we leave the Finns defense, it's the second in the league in interceptions with 19.
No.
The Vikings play the best team in that category, the Bears, with 25 in 2 weeks. But Cousins has 9 picks in 13 games, but only 2 in the past 3 games. But the game before that, unfortunately, Chicago picked off 2. The point is, interceptions cannot be repeated. And I thought last week Cousins did well to not turn the ball over. If there's the few things he didn't do. He didn't have a great game last week. That was one of the things that was positive, that he didn't have any turnovers, because he's been kind of a turnover machine. So they've got to keep taking care of the ball. I mean, you got to know, Joe, that's really probably got to affect his mentality too, playing that
definitely
position. You've got to react so quickly to everything you see. You come up to the line, you get your play, your guy's going to be. You see that you got to read the defense and figure out where they're going to go, set the blocking schemes, and then start anticipating, because everything happens so dang quick, in those few seconds. So, and if you're it's like they say, a guy with a golf swing that has too many things to think about. If you've got to mentally, put that in your head, into your routine there, that, all right, I got to protect the ball. I can't throw an interception. I got to, keep 2 hands on it. I mean, that's just another thing added into your swing thought that maybe can mess with your head. So
I really think that's the problem. Like I've said a couple times on this show, or this episode, it seems like it's just something is disjointed, and I think maybe he's trying too hard to limit those mistakes, so he's not taking the risks that he was earlier in the season. I refuse to believe that neither Diggs. I mean, on Tuesday we talked about multiple times that Thielen was wide open down the field. The 4th and goal, he was wide open. He had a couple other down the field situations, and maybe he's just checking down too much, or just too gun shy. I don't know, but
I saw that play online of the one where he turned and threw the backwards kind of pitch to Dalvin Cook, and they were showing how downfield Thielen was wide open. Well, the thing is, by the time the play had broken down, Thielen wasn't open at that point. He came open just after Cousins made a desperate move to turn around and pitch to, or some, I don't know what you want to call it, a pitch or a pass, or push that ball to Cook. But you can say that he was open, but to a certain extent he wasn't open when he had his head downfield for that long. I mean, these are just split-second decisions, and he clearly was looking to try to not make a mistake there when he was desperately turning and trying to find something to bail him out of the problem that was happening. So, yeah, you may be right.
You could see the nerves on that pitch, too.
God.
It was ugly.
He had one later in the game that I just screamed out in the chat, can the man not pitch a football? Because the way you shuffle it over, it's like, God, for Daniel. But anyway. My next one is the Vikings need improvement in the red zone offense. We all saw that fourth down Kyle Rudolph last week. They are 52.62% and dropping in the red zone. But they're 62.50 at home. So they're at home.
They had like a 75% success rate last season in the red zone, at least for the majority of the season. And I know we talked about on Purple Journal at that point.
Yeah, they're doing good this year too for a while, but they're just in the wrong direction. This is one place where Stefanski can make an immediate impact and help himself lose that interim tag. If you score in this league, you win, and when you get in the red zone, my goodness, you got to score. Do you have any? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you have any sort of semblance or idea? And obviously, we talked about they're not going to implement the new offense at this point. But do you get a feeling as to what kind of guy he is, perfect world, beginning of the season, what sort of system he would run, or even just changes he would make outside of just simplifying things? Stefanski, I do not. I haven't, paid enough attention to that, and I don't know if there's enough.
I looked, and they're not going to say, I guess, either.
But he's not going to change a lot. They can't. That much I do know is, when he's saying that we got to keep running this. I mean, that's what Pat Shurmur did 2 years ago. He took over for Norv. It was the same offense, and they were only 6 games in at the time, I believe, 6 or 7. And you can't just put in a whole new offense, because that's what they spend the off season. That's what they spend OTAs and training camp doing is putting in this offense. Because you want your own team's offense drilled into your head because you're reacting to what the other team's going to do to you. So that's where you spend all your time each week game planning against the other team. You can't necessarily say, okay, we got to put in a new offense, and then how's that offense going to work against this defense we're playing this week? So that's just too much for these guys to take on and to really come out on Sunday and do well, I think. But
I do think they'll try to stick with the run game, just based on the only thing I've seen that's given me any clues or hints is that Zimmer supposedly one of the main reasons he got rid of DeFilippo was he was unhappy with the lack of that stick-to-itiveness in regards to the run game. So,
I think his daughter told him to get rid of him so that scapegoat. Just kidding.
So we'll see. Maybe the uncertainty will help since the Dolphins won't really know what to scheme against. They might have to do some extra homework. Here's
my last furious fact is the Dolphins' offense is 29th in total yards per game, ranked 27th in passing and 18th in rushing. And
how are they winning these games?
I know it. And they're 22nd in total points. They score 21.4 per game. Last week in Seattle, the Vikings defense, in one of their best performances of the year, contained a hot quarterback in Russell Wilson and the top rushing defense in the league.
Yeah.
If they play like that, the offense will score enough to win, I think, this week. So
I brought this up on Tuesday.
That's the ray of hope for you, Joe.
Yeah. And, I worry about maybe the defense getting burned out and feeling like the Jacksonville defense, like we have to do everything perfect and the offense isn't doing anything, and that's frustrating. But I also have a feeling that this game could be similar to the Lions game with the 10 sacks. I think the defensive line is going to be amped up. Sheldon is what's Sheldon Richardson's situation injury-wise?
Well, he was limited all week. I can look up and see what he is. He was yesterday. I think he was. Let's see. More awesome rating. I think he's getting better. They're actually pretty healthy. They have nobody that's DNP yesterday.
Okay.
Sheldon Richardson.
Brian O'Neill went down. That scared me.
Yeah, Sheldon Richardson was limited both days. Trey Waynes was a full participant yesterday, which is huge. So was Brian O'Neill. So that is huge. And Chad Beebe was limited after not practicing on Wednesday. So they're all trending in the right direction. There's a little more problems over in the Dolphins side of the coin, where they've got a few more people, and they had several that did not practice this week. But that's beside the point. If the Vikings can continue to get healthy at this time and get their tailbones in the playoffs, they'll be, that's what you want. You want your team healthy, and you want them playing well. And a win would be so much for their confidence this week.
Yeah. Going into 2 division games, both are winnable. The Bears game is at home, even though the Bears just beat the Rams and seem to be getting things together. The Dolphins have 3 decent to good running backs. That's my second component on how the Vikings are going to win. Frank Gore, the journeyman who's been in the league forever, he's consistent.
He won't present. I don't think he'll present a problem.
Either do I.
He's old and slow, and they can handle that. They're a good rushing defense, I think.
They have Brandon Gordon, who last week had 60 yards. One was a 54-yarder, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Kenyon Drake, I guess, is their speedster.
He's the guy that made that big play. He's on my fantasy team in our league, Joe. So I am very invested in your fantasy team and what's going on this weekend. It'll be interesting to see. I think you're going up against the number 1 team. But turning the Dolphins into a one-dimensional team, forcing Tannehill to beat you, considering he hasn't thrown for many yards and is coming off of injury. That'll be a huge component. And then I'm kind of cheating, so I have 2. Their defense held the Patriots to 70 yards rushing last week, wow.
which is pretty good considering they have Samsung, Michelle, and James White there. And New England actually blocked two punts last week too. So special teams is big. I've been kind of ragging on Prefer lately. It'd be great to see some positive stuff from them across the board, but it's a very winnable game, like we've said. I mean, they're 7-6 somehow, but they have momentum, and they obviously came off that huge win. But Tannehill's not very good on the road, so hopefully they win. They definitely have to. I mean, we've established that.
So are they gonna make the playoffs, Joe?
The Vikings?
Yes, sir.
Oh God, that's a very hard question. I'll answer it after I ask you. I'll answer your question with the question. Do you think they need to win all 3 to make the playoffs?
I know we both can suffice it to say they have to win 2. That's a given, right? They gotta win 2 games to get in. If they don't win 3, that means all those other teams, those 3 teams that are chasing them, have to lose a game. All 3 of those teams have a game on their schedule remaining that they could easily lose. So in that regard, you have to say you could speculate that no, they don't have to. But as a Viking fan of many years and seeing how their luck goes, I say they got to win all 3 to make sure of it. And if you win these 2, you're coming in really strong in the final game of the season with confidence against the Bears, who embarrassed you on national TV. And by that time, the Bears will have nothing to play for. They're not going to move up.
Be resting people.
Yeah, they might be resting people there. They won't have the same fire because they won't have to win the division. They won't be able to move up in the playoff seeding because those other 2 teams above them are all going to. Maybe they could jockey with the Cowboys. Who knows what's going to happen there yet? But generally speaking, they probably won't have anything to play for, and they'll be resting. And the Vikings will have everything to play for, and they'll come out like gangbusters and win it. But I want them to win all 3 desperately because that's the kind of confidence you want going in. You're going to have to go back out on the road, the first game of the playoffs, and so you want to be going with a really confidence in what you're doing in the system or the play calling that Stefanski's doing. So, do they have to? No, with an asterisk. That's what I'll say.
I will say that I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I, like you, desperately want them to, but it's just been so increasingly bad on offense, and if we would have talked about this on Tuesday, I might have had a different answer. I did like the move that they made with Stefanski, and I'm hoping that his relationship with Cousins and his the quarterback whisperer thing is going to help. He's been Cousins' coach, so if there's anybody who can fix what's going on with him, it's him. I mean, Cousins puts in a ton of work. His entire life is about his job. I mean, the brain training and the meals that he eats, the type of workouts that he does. You know, it's across the board. You can't say that he isn't at least giving it 150%.
Right.
And
go back to the Treadwell thing where he was doing the same thing, and
yeah,
Zimmer comes out and said maybe he's not doing the right things. And maybe back off. All those jugs machines every practice and running up and down the stairs. Maybe figure out how to work smarter or do the things you need to work on that's going to help you improve. So I don't know that that's the truth. I'm not faulting Cousins in any way, but I'd like to see him. Hopefully, he's practicing getting out of the pocket more, because that's where I think he can really help this offense.
That has been that 4th and goal. He could have rounded in easily. I mean, the teams are giving him these opportunities. The thing that I fear is that in working with Stefanski this season and sitting down with him, they're next to each other at every meeting, according to Zimmer, that he's not telling Stefanski how he really feels. He's doing what he did with the volume question that Zimmer posed to him.
Good soldier.
Exactly. So maybe he isn't saying, well, this bothers me or this, because he feels like it's his fault and he needs to fix it because it's his job and maybe he's making all this money, so on and so forth. But you would have to think that if that was the case, based on pure speculation, just comments he's made, that at this point he would have said, okay, this is why I'm struggling, because you have a clean slate, and it could be a fresh start for him. I certainly hope so. I don't want to have an off season where I've already seen people tweeting at us saying, well, they need to renegotiate that contract because this is a nightmare. There was an article in New York saying Kirk Cousins the best $90 million the Jets never spent. You have other articles in print publications saying it's up to Cousins to prove he isn't one of the biggest free agent busts in NFL history. I mean, that's how people are starting.
Yeah, but who cares, Joe?
This.
They're just writers like you and I, and we're as full of crap as they are. So what the hell?
And to be honest, I mean, I think people have been, especially East Coast people, just because of the way he's spurned the Jets, have been waiting to say that, because they were saying that earlier in the season, even when he was playing at a really good level. And
against the Jets, they were playing before that game. Yeah, I just want to say that after the Bears loss, despite that embarrassing loss on Sunday night a few weeks back, I said the Vikings are still going to make the playoffs, and I am not backing away from that. I think they'll win these next two. I mean, I think they'll build, and I don't want to say they should win this one handily, but I'd like to see them do so. They've got a first time play caller, so that's going to be some concerns there, but hopefully they'll have enough support around him that he's not going to freak out with the big spot on him, Kevin Stefanski. So they win this one well. That gives them all the confidence in the world going next week into Detroit, where they should be able to just those guys are mailing it in by this point. And then you come back on a 2-game winning streak. You come back home. You've got the playoffs on the line. You've got every that place is just cranking because you can take down a really a team that stole a division from you, and you can send a message to them because you might be seeing them the following week in the playoffs. So I'm still bullish on this team. If they lose on Sunday, they're done. Not mathematically, but they're done. They absolutely are. So they have everything in the world to gain and a heck of a lot to lose here. So it's got to be one of those ascending things. And you start now. You've had 2 tough games on the road. That you've competed. The second one, you didn't really compete that well, but you were not blown out by either one of these 2 teams. So now you come home, you lick your wounds, you beat a beatable team. Yeah. You start checking off the boxes, and Cousins gets confidence, and they can all say, "Oh, Kevin Stefanski's a genius." They can go with that narrative. But
that's the future I want to live in.
It's just this league every week to week. I mean, they lose, people freak out and get mad. They win. Some people still find something to get mad about, but most people will say, "Oh God, they're the greatest." And all the teams are so close. I've talked about this forever. So You know, just got to win.
So let's get into predictions. I apologize for not sending these over earlier. I'm having issues getting my new cell phone set up, but I did get an Apple iWatch as well, and I have literally walked 0.98 miles during this show because I pace in a circle when I'm on air. So
you should start jogging. That'd be really good for you.
Well, I certainly sound like I am, according to all the breath. But I wasn't. I didn't send over the over under, so we'll kind of do this on the fly. But the ones I came up with were over under. Cousins 0.5 interceptions. Dalvin Cook 14.5 rushing attempts. And the Vikings offense, 20.5 points. So I will tweet those out really quickly. If people respond and are correct, then on Tuesday we will run a random generator and pick a winner to bring home a Vikings Garden Gnome, which are amazing. I am looking at one right now. But you can go first. Or how's that going?
I'm going to say, there's two tantalizing ones there for me. I think they're going to feed the ball to Cook for sure, but, that still may be a little high. I'm going to go over on the 20.5 points for the Vikings.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. They're going to. Well, I heard someone say today, I heard Paul Charchian say they only need 17 points to win this game. And 24 would make it for sure, but I think they're only going to need 17, so. Hopefully, Zimmer doesn't do his usual. Oh, we got 17 points, so we can sit out for the rest of the game and just run. I'm gonna do the under on Cousins interceptions. I'm gonna invest in my guy. One last time.
I'm back, buddy. We can do this. And when it comes to the score, I do think the Vikings will win this game. The division games are going to be tricky regardless, but I do think that it'll be a relatively boring game, but I think it'll be 24-13, something around that.
I got 27-20 Vikings. I might be a little high on the I might be a little high though. You could make up some ground this week if we.
I'm hoping so. I gotta ask Luke for sure, but I think I'm 40, 50 points down, which is better than last season when I was down by 6,000 or whatever. But it'll be an interesting game. I am very, 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 very nervous about it. It does feel like you said, Joe, that if they win, you can take a sigh of relief and say, okay, they can build on that. They still make the playoffs. I mean, it's just so much fun when they do, and I really want that to happen, even if they don't make it far this season. But we'll find out.
Folks should come out this week to the chat that we have on the site during each game. It's building each week, and it's actually it's getting to be a lot of fun. We've got a few writers in there. We've also got a number of fans checking in, and it's a blast. There's a lot of going back and forth and chatter during the game, so people should come out or should get online and participate and tell Joe Johnson that the Vikings are going to win.
Misery loves company is always the tagline for the chat, and you're right. It is awesome. There's it is getting bigger, but we have a good group of guys. It's troll free, which is always nice. I'll post a link to that couple hours before the game and on our social media, so definitely check that out. About the Labor is back and had their third new episode last night. That should be available on the article either before or after this on Vikings Territory and Purple PTSD. Otherwise, check out our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that and get access to all the different shows that we have. My plan with this new iPhone is to do some more video content as well, maybe rapid reaction to the game, stuff like Joe and I did on Tuesday. It seems like people prefer that video to audio for whatever reason, and you get a lot of clicks that way. So stay tuned on Sunday, and hopefully we'll be able to pull out a win, and I won't end up walking 10 miles during the show, or during the game like I usually do. But this has been Morning Joe's. Thanks to everybody for waiting for the show to start. I had some technical difficulties per usual. But, yeah. See everybody in the chat on Sunday and back on Tuesday morning to analyze the game. Skol.